Hey, what's going on guys? I'm Jimmy with One Road, and today we're going to be checking the fuel pressure on my '03 Chevrolet Suburban. If you are a subscriber to my channel, then you'll know I have an ongoing saga where my Suburban will not start. I've already replaced, what the check engine light said was the mass airflow sensor. That's brand new, OEM. I've also replaced the 2 upper intake manifold gaskets as well as the 2 NOx sensors because I know I had a vacuum leak there anyway, so I figured I'd just get that out of the way. Now I'm suspecting that the fuel pump is to blame. So I went to Harbor Freight and I picked up their fuel injection pump tester so that I can test my fuel pressure coming from the fuel pump. On this motor, this is the access port for the fuel rail. This is where I'll be hooking up my gauge. So I'll go ahead and take out the hose that I think I'm gonna need. You can see inside there's a pin that should press in the Schrader valve, sending fuel through the line and into this gauge. And from every bit of research I could do, we should be sitting at about 50 PSI if everything is good. So I'm gonna take my gauge and the other end of that hose. I'm gonna go ahead and screw it together. This kit was about $20 at Harbor Freight, and then I used a 20% off coupon, which brought it down to, I think it was about $17 out the door with tax and everything. Let me go ahead and take off this valve cover here. The inside of this port looks pretty much like what a bicycle, tire or your car tire would look like. It's there's just basically a Schrader valve in there, which is just a pin that you press in and the fuel comes out. I wear thick gloves because I don't want any fuel on my skin if I can help it. We are all hooked up. The only step now is to crank the key on. I'm not going to start it, I'm just going to turn the key on so that the fuel pump starts up, and we will see what that gauge reads. Okay, so Houston, we have a problem. Either my fuel pump is completely dead or I'm doing something wrong. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to make sure that everything I'm doing is correct, everything is hooked up tight, and then I might even be able to jump the fuel pump within the fuse panel under the hood. Okay, so what I'm about to do, I do not recommend you follow my lead. Do your own research, figure this out for yourself. I watched another video and the guy seemed to know what he was talking about. He was testing his fuel pump manually, and what he simply did was pulled out the relay. You can see this is the relay right here, and you can test by putting a jumper between number 30 and number 87. That basically supplies 12 volts directly to the fuel pump. I made a jumper here. You can see it's a little bit thick. You're gonna need some thin wire, but it does work. All I'm gonna do is come into the bottom number 87, shove my wire in that terminal there, and then I'll come up to 30 and listen. Okay, I can hear the fuel pump running, and I can also see the gauge has absolutely 0 pressure. I'm gonna throw this relay back in and put this cover on. All right, so what I've learned so far is that I'm not getting any fuel pressure whatsoever. Now, why is that? I can hear the fuel pump turn on when I turn the key and when I manually jump it. Is it possible for the fuel pump to be running but at such a low volume that it produces no fuel pressure? You guys let me know, comment below. I'm gonna go ahead and research that. I don't know if it's not the fuel pump, maybe it's something else that's turning on, trying to kick the fuel pump on, and that's why I'm not getting any pressure, because the fuel pump's not actually running. Or the third and most embarrassing option is there's no fuel in the tank, so the fuel pump's running and turning on just fine, but there's no fuel, it's completely empty. The only reason why I bring that up is because I have been having this issue. And in the past, we'd jump in the car, go to start it, and it cranks and cranks and cranks and does not start. We freak out, go to start it again, and it starts. And the gauge usually was sitting at about a quarter or even a little above a quarter tank. So I guess an option there is maybe the gauge is completely wacky, completely wrong, due to the fuel pump being old age or whatever. And so it's actually more empty than it's showing. And we're running on fumes those days and just got lucky making it, to where we needed to be and to the gas station. Or the fuel pump is completely dead, just producing absolutely no pressure whatsoever, and it needs to be changed. I know that gauge is hooked up correctly. Everything is good on that end. I even took it off and smelt the inside. I can smell fuel. There's no fuel dripping out of it. There's no fuel anywhere. No fuel spilt out of the line when I plugged into it. So that's telling me that there's really no fuel getting to the motor. The only option I can see is going to be the fuel pump. I already changed the fuel filter just the other day. That's brand new. So for my subscribers, we are still trying to get this thing started, but this is a good sign. I now know some definitive information. I'm not getting any fuel to the motor. That's why it's not starting. For you guys who just came to see how to test the fuel pressure, if you had fuel pressure, the correct pressure would be around 50 psi, somewhere in that ballpark. Multiple videos that I watched had that same pressure reading and same number, so that is what I came up with as a normal pressure for these fuel pumps in these trucks. Get your fuel pressure tester at Harbor Freight, use the 20% coupon, you'll be at like 17 bucks out the door. I think that's the cheapest one you can find. One last thing just to make sure that we don't have a fault with our gauge here. I have my shop compressor and I have the pressure turned all the way down, so it's like, you know, at 40 or 40 something psi. So I'm just gonna, I hooked up a different end there. I'm just gonna hook this up here and we're gonna see it works. Very good. You didn't think I was gonna let the video end like that, did you? We gotta see what this gauge looks like when there's actual, real, bona fide fuel pressure hitting it. So this is definitely a spoiler alert, but it's a few weeks later from just the footage you were just watching, and I have already fixed the Suburban. This thing is running, and it's running fantastic, and I'm gonna have to make you wait till the next video to find out what it was. It's all been recorded, and it'll be uploaded soon. But at least you know that yes, I found the problem. There were some of you down in the comments below that did guess it. Definitely the next video will tell you what was going on. I just hooked up the fuel pressure gauge, and I primed the truck. I just turned the key into the on position without starting it, which turns the fuel pump on and primes the fuel, thereby giving us some fuel pressure. Now, for some reason that gauge is going crazy when the fuel pump is actually running. I don't know why, it's just kind of vibrating up there in that 50 to 55 pound range. But regardless, I know that this truck is working, everything is working the way it should, because I actually have fuel pressure, whereas before I had none. What I'm gonna do now is actually start the truck, and we're gonna look at the fuel gauge and see what that looks like while the truck is running. There's the gauge. We're sitting at about 45 psi, and that gauge is jumping around quite a bit, so I don't know if there's an issue with the gauge itself or what the deal may be, but we do have fuel pressure, and that's good. All right, so last question before I actually end this video. Is there an issue there with the fuel pressure? I know that when I would do my research, some people were saying that fuel pressure should be up in like the 50 to 55, even 60 range. It looks like I'm sitting about 45, and for some reason that thing is just kind of tweaking out. So I don't know if that's an issue with the gauge. It is a Harbor Freight gauge. I mean, it seems to be an okay gauge, but or if that's just for some reason my pressure is going crazy. I don't know why. The bottom line though is that I do have pressure, and the truck is running. I actually just took this thing on a long road trip down to Vegas, had absolutely no issues whatsoever. So everything is working great. Anyways, so that's it. Video's done. Give me your 2 cents down in the comments below. What do you think? I mean, you can guess also as to what it was that was the problem that I had already fixed. Guess down in the comments below. I'd be curious to see what you guys thought. I know a lot of you guys already know. So yeah, let me know also what you think in terms of my fuel pressure and or the gauge or whatever. I did have a leak before when I hooked it up, and so I had to put some Teflon tape on there to try to get the leak to stop, which it did stop. But I'm curious why that gauge is jumping around like that. Maybe that's completely normal, I'm not sure. I do know the truck is running great and everything is good. So anyways, with that guys, I'm gonna end it. And I'm Jimmy with One Road. Thanks again for watching. Please hit the thumbs up. It helps my channel. It helps my videos. Also subscribe and check the description below for more information and links and all that good stuff. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks guys. Peace out.